get a super powered last respects, I think that that's a way that Kylan can really work around something like that Ceruledge.
Immediately the Floette and Whimsicott, though, for Kylan. No Charizard, most likely in this game. And the Ceruledge and Vivian. Immediately, Dawei says, I'm going to start setting up this Ceruledge. And this is two really great Pokemon for Ceruledge to be sitting in front of.
Yeah, you have the opportunity, I think, here to just kind of go for some damage into either of these Pokemon. Of course, Floette, not necessarily known for its physical bulk. That's something that the Ceruledge would definitely love to, you know, to slash down, but it's going to be the Mega Evolution for Floette first.
The Floette will Mega Evolve, activate that Fairy Aura ability, and power up the Fairy-type moves of both itself and that Whimsicott. Whimsicott holding the Fairy Feather item is no slouch when it comes to offense.
Yeah, those Fairy Feathers actually do boost up those Moonblasts quite a bit. I have seen some Garchomps get taken down very low in that regard, but it's just going to be a quick Dazzling Gleam here. Vivian gets taken down quite low as the Vivian does land the Sleep Powder into the Mega Floette. It's going to be stopped in its tracks. But as a reminder, you know, Sleep, you have a chance to wake up as the Bitter Blade comes out from the Ceruledge and brings this Whimsicott all the way down. That is the downside to having the Fairy Feather, as there's no Focus Sash to keep this Whimsicott in the game.
I think that's a really smart play from Dawei. If you go for something like a Bulk Up, Rage Powder on this turn, you leave yourself pretty liable to getting Encored by the Whimsicott on the following turn. Vivian cannot redirect that Encore away from Ceruledge because Whimsicott, as a Grass type, is immune to Rage Powder. So you immediately take out the Whimsicott, you heal up the damage from that Dazzling Gleam very well, and you put Floette to sleep, which means it has to stay asleep on at least this coming turn. You still have that one guaranteed turn of sleep.
You have to worry about this Garchomp, though, because Whimsicott, while it got knocked out on the last turn, is able to utilize this Tailwind to just get a massive attack off. That is going to just be the Rock Slide. You would have liked to be able to knock out this Vivian as well, but of course, because it does have that flying typing, you need to be able to hit it, you know, with a non-ground type attack.
Yeah.
Still a great opportunity here for the Ceruledge to take advantage of that weaker attack option from the Garchomp. Not getting a same type attack bonus, doesn't get flinched either, and it gets that Bulk Up off.
Now that the Encore threat is gone, that Bulk Up will come in very handy. Love the Incineroar swap there as well. You lower the damage from a possible Earthquake or Rock Slide. Now you have the option to fake out that Garchomp before it can do any more super effective damage to Ceruledge, and either get another Bulk Up off or just start going on the offense with that Bitter Blade. If you're able to Bitter Blade the Floette, it might come close to a knockout, and if not, you're still doing a lot of damage, putting it in Shadow Sneak range and healing.
Well, you got to fake out in two here for the Incineroar, another Pokemon that gets to get enough damage down onto with the Rock Slide. Now the Ceruledge, with that +1 to its attack boost, is going to take advantage of this Floette still being asleep and heal back all of that damage.
This is why the Ceruledge is a pretty good threat into Kylan's team. Any chip damage you can do into it is likely just going to get mitigated by that Bitter Blade. It's kind of like we saw with Brendan Zhang's team earlier on in this tournament. That Draining Kiss, Floette is able to heal itself up after taking some damage, but in this case, the Ceruledge, I think, is, well, more better positioned into the rest of Kylan's team than that earlier Floette was, especially considering Dawei still got all four of their Pokemon. They could swap out and back in that Incineroar, get another Intimidate down on this Garchomp, and suddenly this Garchomp, which is typically a pretty good answer in this Ceruledge, is unable to touch it.
Yeah, I don't think there's a way that this Garchomp can actually get a one-hit knockout onto this Incineroar. The best case scenario here is going to be this Rock Slide coming out, flinching the Incineroar before it's able to use Parting Shot and actually pivot out. But one other way that you have more chances to do this is just by getting some healing back for the Citrus Berry. Floette does wake up though, so Moonblast here to fire off into this Incineroar does not quite do enough to actually get that job done, and Incineroar doesn't flinch either. Parting Shot perfect to get into the Garchomp to continue to mitigate its attack output.
But now this Ceruledge looking even tougher to take down as this match progresses. Smart by Kylan to go for that damage into the Incineroar there. If you are able to knock it out, you don't get Parting Shot out, so you're only at -1 attack, which is better than -2. And more importantly, you don't give Dawei the option to swap that Incineroar back in. But now, with the potential of getting Garchomp down to -3 attack, with that defense boost on the Ceruledge, how do you break through it?
It's really tough to. I mean, because I think you know that if you go for Earthquake here, you're kind of forcing the Floette for Kylan to protect itself. Otherwise, you are also probably knocking yourself out in this situation. Well, no, I guess not, because it's at -3.
Right.
But you don't want to be doing additional damage to yourself. But it is just going to be the Floette staying in for Dawei, going for the Mega Evolution. And so now we've got 2 Mega Floettes staring each other down. But these blue Pokemon just look a little different than each other. So it's not quite a mirror. As the Rock Slide comes out, take a look at how well that Cerulege is going to handle that. Now it's just about whether you can fight through the flinches. Floette is going to be the first to move. It's going to be Dawei's that is faster than Kylan's to get the Moonblast and the KO onto the opposing Garchomp. Who cares about limiting your attack output if you can just limit it by going for the attack and the KO? Light of Ruin now coming out. That's one of the newer moves that we have seen here from the Mega Floette, but it actually doesn't get the knockout there, and the Floette's going to knock itself out in response.
So who cares if Cerulege flinches? You still got the double knockout here. Yeah, it does. I spoke it into existence, but I think it's probably safe to assume that was supposed to be a Bitter Blade, which would have done nothing in this case. And now Kylan is down to his last Pokemon. It is the Basculegion, which we were saying is, you know, maybe your best option into the Cerulege late game. And it is, but you still also have to deal with the remaining Pokemon Dawei had available. So a really, really well played game 1 from Dawei to take game 1 in round 5.
Because I feel like even if you go for something like the Last Respects, since even if it's fully powered, you have a Shadow Sneak from the Cerulege that at +1 probably knocks out this Basculegion, or at least brings you, well, it brings you down to the Focus Sash, I have to imagine.
Comes really close, and if not, the Floette just picks it up at the very end there. So that was probably not going to be winnable for Kylan from that position.
No, no, definitely not with 4 Pokemon. So the forfeit makes a lot of sense, but as we think about what could change going into game 2, I feel like you just have to be really cognizant of the fact that this Vivillon can always go for some type of sleep powder. But it's rough because what do you have that will be faster than that can afford to actually try to, you know, get the knockout?
I do think the Pokemon that Kylan led with were fine. It's just that Dawei had a game plan for that lead already. You know, Whimsicott does prevent you from going for that turn 1 bulk up, which can be very useful. But if Whimsicott's gone, you get the bulk up off afterwards anyway, especially with a little help from that Intimidate to lower that physical damage before you can get that defense boost. The way that Kylan approached that game, I think, fell apart a little bit after that first bulk up went off, and Kylan wasn't really able to safely swap in that Basculegion until the very end when it was too late.
Yeah, I think maybe I would consider, it's like I would consider leading it, maybe just seeing what kind of mileage you can actually get out of the Basculegion, but it's also tough to do that because you think about wanting to have the power of the Last Respects for later in the game. But it's going to be the Garchomp and the Kingambit for Kylan as we see the Cerulege and Vivillon running it back from game 1 for Dawei.
This is a much better lead for Kylan here in terms of trying to mitigate the damage from the Cerulege early on. This Garchomp we've seen has Rock Slide. The Vivillon is, of course, double weak to Rock, and so you're threatening a lot of damage into both Vivillon and Cerulege right off the bat. And Incineroar is a decent swap in here to mitigate the damage from the Garchomp, but having the Kingambit next to it makes it much more difficult to do. Of course, the Cerulege does have that Colbur Berry, so one Kowtow Cleave or Sucker Punch, probably not enough damage for a knockout, but if you boost it up with that Incineroar, it might be too much.
Well, Garchomp gets to go for a Rock Slide here. If it connects onto this Vivillon, you have to imagine that it is at least going to be able to bring it down to that Focus Sash, and so perfect call there from the extremely effective Rock Slide. I love that we have that new verbiage in the game to show that a move is 4 times super effective. But the Focus Sash keeps this Vivillon around to get a sleep powder into this Garchomp. As Kowtow Cleave fails to hit its mark, and that's actually kind of worst case scenario. I think you would have liked to have dealt with this Vivillon.
I like that Kylan kind of split the attention there. Like, you can potentially catch the Cerulege being a little bit greedy, but with the way that this turn played out, this is a really great sleep pattern to Kingambit. You're guaranteeing a turn for Cerulege to take 0 damage and get this bulk up off in the face of these 2 physical attackers.
Yeah, and I think at this point you just really have to hope that your Pokemon can wake up quickly. Otherwise, you know, this Vivillon isn't going to be doing a whole lot. It does have Hurricane, which, you know, Compound Eyes is going to be a little more accurate, right? But it's still a Hurricane outside of Rain.
I mean, the Vivillon has done its job, right? Anything else you get out of Vivillon in this game, I think, is extra. The +1 Bitter Blade is going to threaten a lot of damage into its Kingambit, if not just cleanly knock it out. With the bulk up and the potential of an Intimidate later on, this Garchomp is also probably not going to be able to do as much as you might like it to as well.
Rage Powder is one way that you can for sure keep it safe. Garchomp likely not going to want to go for an Earthquake when you know that this King Gambit is sitting right next to you, but the Bitter Blade is going to finish it off instead. That is an easy one-hit knockout for this Ceruledge to take. And so Kylan's gonna at least be able to bring in something else, but what's faster than this Vivian to deny a Sleep Powder?
Potentially Floette. I think if Floette is got a little bit of training in that speed stat, it should be able to outspeed and knock it out. Of course, Garchomp now even more likely to wake up. I think on this coming turn, it's got a 50-50 shot. If it doesn't wake up on this turn, it will wake up the following turn. Basculegion does come in here. I like that. The Garchomp does wake up and be able to knock out this Vivian, then potential Last Respects can be huge here. But with that bulk up, there's potentially the chance for Ceruledge to survive, especially with only one boost of that Last Respect.
I think it will too, because you still have the Colbert Berry, right? Oh no, that's for dark type moves. Never mind. Last Respects is a ghost type attack. My bad. Well, Shadow Sneak is going to at least break the Focus Sash on this Basculegion, but good to know that it actually would need a +2 to take it all the way down to the Focus Sash. But Garchomp gets to go for the Rock Slide here and deal some good damage down to this Incineroar, but can we actually see this Ceruledge hang on? Liquidation is actually going to be the move of choice here from the Basculegion, calling that there was going to be switching of the Incineroar. So that's quite nice to be able to get the damage, but now what? Because you're just in Shadow Sneak range.
I think the Liquidation there, I like it because you were giving yourself a chance to knock out Vivian if Garchomp didn't wake up. But by essentially continuing to ignore this Ceruledge, you've put yourself in a position where this turn where you basically had a chance to swing into it, you had the chance to go for that Last Respects on this turn. You've now lost that chance. You can't Last Respects the Ceruledge anymore because Shadow Sneak will knock you out first. You maybe can't even Aqua Jet it, the Ceruledge could be faster.
I guess the thinking is that if the Vivian stays in, then you're going to get the Liquidation redirected anyway because Rock Slide should knock out the Vivian.
True.
Otherwise, you do get the safe damage into something that ends up switching in, but for now, you just see the Basculegion protecting and the Garchomp got faked out by the Incineroar.
Obviously the correct fake out target there. You can't fake out the Basculegion. You're threatening enough.
You could try.
I mean, you can try. Maybe it'll Terra. But the Ceruledge still threatening this Basculegion to be knocked out by a Shadow Sneak. We haven't seen the speed interaction yet, so if Ceruledge is faster, this Basculegion's a little bit doomed, and then you still just have this -1 Garchomp against a +1 defense Ceruledge, and it's a bit of a deja vu from game number 1.
Yeah, the Incineroar is going to retreat. It already dropped the attack stat of both the Basculegion and the Garchomp, so the Vivian comes back in, actually takes the Aqua Jet here. So, okay, at least guaranteed damage down onto the Ceruledge as the Shadow Sneak comes in and finishes it off. Yeah, that's kind of the thing, right? Like, you get the damage, but the Aqua Jet is just less strong attack than the Liquidation, and you have that defense boost alongside the Intimidate drop that was done.
Earthquake does knock out Ceruledge though, so this is a way back in for Kylan with that critical hit. Maybe was a difference maker there, but the combination of Aqua Jet and Earthquake was very threatening regardless. We do find out that the Ceruledge is slower than Basculegion, so that's really important for both these trainers to know if there is a third game in this set. But the Floette on Dawei's side is still going to be really scary if that is the 4th Pokemon they brought to this game. I think with the Garchomp already having taken some damage, already at -2 attack, or maybe at -1 now, but with the potential to be down to -2 with Incineroar in the back, the Floette for Dawei might be just the game winner here.
Yeah, because we saw in game 1 that Dawei's Floette moved first, so you can guarantee, you can probably guarantee like Moonblast into the Garchomp and sleep. It's not a total guarantee.
No.
Because I think we've seen that the Garchomp is faster than the Vivian, so you could try to get the Call of Protect, get the Moonblast into Kylan's Garchomp, knock it out, and then Sleep Powder is free to try to connect into the Floette.
Yeah, there are a few avenues to take here if you're Dawei. You certainly have more options than Kylan does. You have a little bit more leeway in the rest of this game than Kylan. I think Kylan needs to get these next couple turns correct, and Dawei can potentially afford to have maybe one, not perfectly optimal turn.
Well, you do have the, Rock Slides. Where there's a Rock Slide, there's a way.
There sure
We've
is.
already seen a way on making it on the stream before. There's also the fact that Light of Ruin can miss.
Yeah, true. And we also saw Dawei's Floette survive a Light of Ruin in that first game as well, I think.
Well, first things first, Vivian is going to protect itself from the Rock Slide. That's going to buy some time for Dawei's Floette to actually break through a flinch and get a KO with something like a Moonblast. So doesn't flinch here. We're going to see the Moonblast go into the Garchomp and get that clean KO. And then it's just going to be this Mega Floette left for Kylan. But on this next turn, even if there's a Light of Ruin into the Moonblast, yeah, the Floette, well, we saw that wasn't really enough. And you don't want to take the Recoil either. That's still a lot of damage. But should be a clean Sleep Powder here into Moonblast.
Is the Vivian faster than Kylan's Floette? I don't know if we've seen that. If the Vivian is faster than the Sleep Powder, is probably just going to win the game for Dawei immediately.
Well, it has to be, right? Because Dawei's Vivian is faster than Dawei's Floette.
Yeah, then you're right.
Yeah.
Then you're right. Yeah, okay, so yeah, Sleep Powder immediately comes through here. We'll put Kylan's Floette to sleep. And there might not be knocked out on this turn, but at this point it might be very, very difficult for Kylan to survive the next couple turns.
Yeah, because at this point you can just kind of threaten Hurricane and Moonblast as you take your first mandatory turn of sleep. And I just don't think there's a way to get through it. You do have Dazzling Gleam as an option for Kylan's Floette, but you're not faster. I think that's the thing, is you have to survive a second Moonblast, and it just doesn't look like that roll is in your favor.
If you happen to dodge the Hurricane and then get a low roll on Moonblast, maybe, but it's not going to happen.
Hurricane is going to bring that Floette down low, and Dawei's Floette will finish it off with a Moonblast. That's going to be a 2-0 win for Dawei C in this round number 5.
That's a really